Welcome back, Gadgeteers. Today on this rainy Monday and slightly chilly day here in Michigan, I thought we'd take a little time out and do a Linux video since I haven't done one in a little while. Now, don't be concerned, I will always do one Linux video per week. However, I am experimenting and doing other things. As you know, I have MacBooks around that I work on. And I also do videos on what is popularly called vintage computing, but for me, I just call it computing because I actually lived through all of that. I started with an 8088 processor clone computer, a K Pro, and I moved up through the ranks. So to me, vintage computing is really fun because it brings back a lot of memories, and there's a lot that you can do on an older computer. Well, I won't say a lot, but to me a lot that you can do on older computers that you can't really do on today's computers. So we'll get into that in another video. But you will always see one Linux video a week. Now, this week's video is going to deal with Fedora 28 bugs. I know many of you don't like it when I don't present the list first off, so you can see what we're going to go through. So I did type up a list I'm going to put up here while we're talking about the issues so that you can kind of see it beforehand, decide if you want to stick around. But if you're thinking of upgrading or installing Fedora 28, you may want to wait just a little bit. I will say for the record though that I have done several updates, and for the most part the bugs have worked themselves out. Now, as we talk through the list here, I'll let you know which ones didn't work out yet. So there are still some that are sticking around. So right now we are shooting in Fedora 28. This is on my Yoga 920. So this is on physical hardware. This is not a virtual machine. I prefer to actually speak about a version of Linux when it's on an actual machine as far as how things are going. Now, when I do my initial testing, I usually do that in a virtual box, which is fine, but if you really want to know what's up, you kind of have to move it over to an actual physical machine. So right now we're running on that Yoga 920. It has a 512 gigabyte SSD, or SSD I should say, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and an 8th generation i7 processor, and it is running on a 4K screen. So right now I'm recording, things seem to be running pretty well. I'm going to pop up OBS here and just do a quick check, make sure we're still recording. Yep, everything looks good. So let's talk about some of the issues I've been having. So the first one can be a doozer. It's the Bluetooth adapter bug. And basically what would happen is I would boot up the system and it would say that the Bluetooth adapter was missing. Well, actually it'd say no Bluetooth adapters found. So that was the message I would get. And I would reboot the system and it still wouldn't be there, so I would have to power down, wait maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and then power back up. Now, with regard to issue there, number one, I can't guarantee that it was all Fedora's fault because I did boot into Windows a couple of times. I was doing some of my work for the college that I teach for, and of course I boot into Windows. So it may have held that Bluetooth adapter at least in memory, and then a reboot didn't clear the memory registers for the device, and of course it didn't work. So shutting it down and bringing it back up did get it working. Now, I haven't noticed the problem since I did the last update, which was 2 days ago. So that problem may be fixed. If it does come up again, I'll let you know in the comments. Which segues into number two. The Bluetooth device doesn't automatically connect, and I'm not sure why that is. Normally it's not an issue, but what I've had to do is go into Bluetooth and then devices, and right now my mouse is connected. You can see I could disconnect, but what I had to do was go into Bluetooth devices after I booted up and click connect. Now, to be fair, that's only happened maybe 1 or 2 times. For the most part, every time I boot up, it does connect. This is actually refreshing from what used to happen in previous versions of Fedora, Fedora 27 and 26 especially, which was I would log in and my mouse wouldn't be working, which is a Bluetooth mouse, and I would go into devices and there would be a banner across the top that says, Bluetooth is disabled. Would you like to fix it? ? Click here, and I would click there, and it would enable the Bluetooth, I'm assuming the adapter. So that used to happen in Fedora 27, 26, and so on. They got rid of that bug and replaced it with this one, which is maybe 30% of the time I have to go in here and click connect. Not a big deal. It's not a showstopper. Third problem. This is quite a big bug in my opinion. So couple of things would happen. One is I would take a Bluetooth device and plug it in, and it would not recognize the device at all. So I would unplug it. I would try another Bluetooth device, maybe a USB thumb drive, or I have a USB mouse. It wouldn't recognize either one of those. Other times it would act really flaky. It would recognize the device, and at one point I couldn't get it to read it. It said the device had to be formatted or some such thing, and I didn't want to do that because I knew there was something on there. I said, well, I just need to get a file off of this computer and move it onto another computer, so I'll just try another thumb drive. So I stuck another thumb drive in, and the computer hard locked. I mean hard locked. The mouse froze in the middle of the screen. Even the touchpad wasn't working. The keypad wouldn't work anymore. And I had to hold down the power button for 10 seconds until it finally powered off, and then power the system back up. Once I powered back up, everything was working fine. I could read either of those 2 USB thumb drives, so it worked fine. That one bothered me quite a bit. When we get to the point where there's hard locks and there shouldn't be, I'm very concerned. Now, that problem has not surfaced since I've done updates, so that bug also might be worked out. With regard to it not reading USB devices, when that happened, I again powered it down, shut it off for about 20 to 30 seconds, and then powered it back up, and it worked fine again. I also have not seen that problem in the last few days since I did updates, so I'm hoping that one has been fixed, but to be fair, I have not done enough testing yet, so I can't guarantee it. Now, the network card bug appears to be completely gone. In essence, what would happen is I would be working and the network would disconnect, all of a sudden, the Wi-Fi network, and I would go down here, and it would no longer have the Wi-Fi connection here or any active connection information. As a matter of fact, it couldn't find a network card at all. I was hoping a reboot would help, which I did. I rebooted and it was back. So that kind of bugged me. These were some pretty significant bugs in my opinion. And this is kind of rare for Fedora, so I was surprised to see that. Now that one went away earlier on, so I believe the updates have squashed that one. No sound in the apps. This continues to be a problem, and basically what will happen is I'll go to an application and click on a video, say for example, and play the video, and there will be no sound. And I'll think, well, that's really strange. So I'll go down to the sound mixer, or I'll just click on the mixer itself, the mixer itself. I will click on the buttons to bring the volume up or down, and there's a sound associated with it that you normally hear. You would still hear that sound, but all of the applications no longer would have sound of any sort. And you guessed it, a reboot would fix the problem, so if you reboot, the problem goes away. Now, it's been about 2 days for that one as well, but I've done really no testing yet, so I can't say whether or not it's fixed. The next one, this one was really strange. Basically what happened, and I'll probably overlay a video I have, all of my icons on the desktop were diagonally laid out across the screen after a reboot, which is fine, right? You know, if it's like this or whatever, which is exactly what it was like. What was really weird is the icons diagonally were laid out, and there was a scroll bar over here, so I could scroll down and scroll all the way down to go to the very last icon. But if I tried to click on one and move it, the icon would just, it was almost as if it was only painted on the screen. Now, how can you tell if you have these icons on your desktop? Well, these are actually just symbolic links, of course, to the actual applications, which is what that little link down there is. If I go into my home folder, we have a desktop folder, and you can see here that I actually do have all of my symbolic links here as a file. So I knew they were really there. And if I would select one and delete it, it would go away from here. So let's delete Firefox, for example. Let's see what happens if I cut it. Not much. Okay, so we will delete it. I should be able to undo it. Okay, so Firefox went away. And that would happen when the icons were across the screen and down. So even if I brought it back, the icon would appear, but you still couldn't move or do anything with it. Now, I don't know if that bug was fixed or not. What I ended up doing was going into the icon setup here, and I started playing around with arrangements. So I believe what worked for me was sort by name, and it ended up sorting all my icons alphabetically, which I didn't want, but it did bring them up into a row here, and I was able to use the icons once again. But as you can see, I have a particular way that I like my icons set up. Home and trash are a part of the desktop by default. These ones I added. And I have my two browsers here, and then I have the process that I go through to create a video. I use GovC View to make alterations to the color and gamma and so on of my camera, and then I have OBS to actually shoot the video if it's going to be on this particular device, and then KDE Live to edit. Might use Handbrake later to convert a particular video that's a source video from another device, like a camera or a camcorder. Finally, I create my thumbnail, and I always have Terminal on the desktop just in case I need it. Now, I do have favorites over here, which are basically the same in very similar order. But I just found these were easier for me, you know, to get started, and I don't have to hunt for anything. So that was a little bit of a booger. It took me a little while to figure that one out. So I was able to take care of that issue myself. Now, number 7 is an old issue, but a strange one nevertheless. I may be able to demonstrate for you. So right now, if I turn the sound up and down, you can see that the little icon comes up on the screen and it's showing that the sound is being adjusted. At any time, if I actually go in, let's go to a videos folder here, and we'll grab a video that I'm working on coming up, and the video automatically starts playing. So now I'm going to go ahead and try to do volume adjustment. It doesn't come up. Well, what if I go here and click the speaker? Nothing. So I cannot do any kind of audio adjustment, and there it finally popped up. Even if I come over here and I'll click on the video, should pause it. If not, we can try the pause here. There we go. Okay, so it's paused. And now I can get the audio change to come up. Sometimes it won't come up at all until you actually go and completely close down the video itself, and then you can make a change to the audio. That was a bug. It's been a bug since Fedora 25. It manifests itself on other systems that I'm using, so I'm not sure what that's all about. Now, to be fair, this is the only Fedora 28 system I have, so I can't honestly say that it's going to be the same issue on another system. I'm kind of hoping that it isn't, but in essence, those are the 7 bugs that I've encountered, one being kind of an older one. And there's always been, like we talked about, a kind of flaky Bluetooth issue where the adapter is disabled and you have to enable it. Now, though, instead it's just gone. It says there are no Bluetooth adapters present and you have to do a power off and power on, which may be related to dual booting into Windows if you're a dual booter. Alright, as I said before, I do have some new problems, bugs that have surfaced in Fedora 28. This first is whenever I try to load one of my templates, I immediately have a crash in KDE Live, which is very, very rare. Normally, KDE Live is perfectly fine. Every great once in a while, I might have a problem with it. But what I'm finding out is every one of the projects that I've created before is now crashing. Now, the irony here is that it's still running the same version, 17.12.3, as my Fedora 27 system is. So it's not like there's an updated version for Fedora 28, so it's definitely a problem in Fedora 28. One of the other things that I tried was to downgrade KDE Live, and here I'm doing it again, but I already did it, and it did not. Even though it said it downgraded it, it did not actually downgrade. It was still version 17.12.3. So I really am not sure what to think. This bug is pretty big and it's a real problem for me, as this is probably my #1 productivity application. Now here, of course, I'm showing you that I'm running version 17.12.3, so when I did the downgrade, it actually did not downgrade the version. Now here I'm doing an update, and I was having a problem earlier, and I wanted to show you this. Look at what's happening here in the lower right hand corner. It's showing no batteries available. So the system is still working, everything's normal, it appears to be charging, but the thing is, if it's doing that, it makes me nervous to think that there might be a power issue if it's telling me that there's no battery available. After rebooting, the battery was back as normal and everything seemed to function normally. Given these two problems, however, I really cannot recommend upgrading to Fedora 28 right now. I do suggest that if you're interested in Fedora, you either use Fedora 27 or you wait a little while for some of these bugs to work out. I'll continue to do updates in Fedora, and we'll see hopefully if all these bugs are hopefully worked out very soon. Now there's an 8th non-bug that I will talk about. Many of you ask about the battery life. Now I've got a video that will be coming out as soon as I can finish my testing. This regards the Yoga 920 hardware, so it's not a bug, but I did want to let you know that as a preliminary, I did do a battery test, and my criteria for battery testing under Fedora Linux on a device is the same as it is for any other operating system. What I like to do is do what I call a real-world test. Now, if you see somebody saying, well, somebody being the hardware manufacturer, okay, oh, this battery will run 10 hours, okay, and then it goes to Consumer Reports, for example, and they say, we confirm we can run this, 10 hours, but they test it at 30 to 40% brightness, and they do maybe 1 to 2 hours of video play. No, 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 no. I'm a real-world computer user, so I take it straight to the hilt. I run mine at 70 to 80% brightness, and I do, in the case of my testing, I did a good 3 hours, maybe a little more, of video playback, and the screen is on all the time, and I do not restrict my use of the computer. So it's what I consider a real-world testing of the computer. And I tested this Yoga 920 running off the battery. I do have TLP installed. I do not have PowerTop installed. I haven't experimented with that at all yet. And I was able to get just under 6 hours, so about 5 hours 45 minutes. Now, I did continue using the system under the battery for a total of 6 hours, but typically when I get the low battery indication, I go ahead and shut it down and then charge it. In this case, I decided to keep going and see how much time I could get out of the system. I was actually able to use the system a total of 6 hours, down to 5% battery life, which I normally do not do. When it hits that 10% and says, you know, if you don't do something, and this is what Fedora does, it warns you that the battery is extremely low and it's going to go into hibernate mode. So normally I would let it do that and then immediately put it on the charger. But I said, no, don't go into hibernate. And I went ahead and continued using the system and successfully got 6 hours. But in real world testing, I probably would have got just under 5 hours, about 5 hours 45 minutes. This is not as much as I got on the Yoga 910, but then again, this system has a 8th generation 4-core system of the i7 Intel processor. So I can't be sure, well, I can actually. I mean, apparently there is a difference, but this was under Fedora 28. So I'll do another test a little bit later and run it again and see how long it takes. The thing about my real world test and why it takes me so long to get you a battery report is that it does take me a while because I actually use that system for all those hours. And I don't let the screen go to sleep, or I try not to. If it does go to sleep, only 1 or 2 minutes. And I'm using the system for that all that time to do whatever it is I'm going to do. And I want the testing to be accurate in terms of what I'm doing. So I like to do at least half the time watching videos. So I'll watch videos or whatever. And of course, if I had not watched 3 hours of videos, I know the battery would have lasted a lot longer. Now, right now, of course, I'm recording with OBS. I've been busy with the system. I played some videos back, and if we go over to battery life, it's telling me I'm going to get, let's see if we can get it to say that again, about 2 hours 25 minutes. I don't think that would be the case, of course, if I wasn't recording and doing all this stuff, because I was able to get the 6 hours. So I'm going to do the same test on Windows 10 because this is a new system for me, so I have not tested it using my standards for testing under Windows 10, and then we'll compare apples to apples. Same hardware, different operating systems, and we can get an idea of how good the battery is doing under those test conditions. Anyway, so those are the 7 bugs that I have discovered. I did consider this one very important to be fixed, and this one as well. Since updates, I haven't encountered either. If it does crop up again, I'll put it in the comments and I'll pin it to the top so that you can see that comment up at the top. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I know many of you have been sharing both on Twitter. I'm seeing that you're sharing, and I've seen over 300 shares in a month on YouTube. I really appreciate that. I really enjoy doing this. I hope it shows, and I hope you enjoy watching. As always, thank you, and I'll see you next time on Fast Gadgets. This video was made possible with support from viewers like you. If you find this video useful, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/FastGadgets.